And all of a sudden those kids have a strength that is, they're just so resilient, and a strength that you can't even understand, but all they need is a community around them. And each person in the family needs that, because it's such a
Yeah.
long journey
Yeah.
for these families. But we've had kids, go off to college and get married and have careers, and we help get them diagnosed and healed. And whatever healing looks like, some of them it's complete healing. Sometimes it's a lot of emotional healing. Sometimes it's just they have this huge family now of CC4C, because we support them through their 18th birthday. So it's not just a one time or 1 year. We're here for their entire childhood.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Up Next. Today, I get a chance to talk with a new friend, someone who everyone kept telling me in the Austin area, you gotta talk with her. You gotta talk with her. Talaya, how
I'm
are
doing
you?
great. Thank you so much for having me, Tommy.
I've heard from Karen, Tony Quintos. I've heard from Monica. You got to hear her story. I'm so excited to talk about your journey and your story and share this with the rest of the Resource Global
Thank
family.
you. Well, I'm honored to be here today.
Yeah. Hey, before we start a little bit, share a little bit about yourself and your journey. We were just talking before this. You thought you were going to be a doctor, but here you are as an entrepreneur. You started a business, you launched a nonprofit. Share with the audience a little bit about what you're doing and how it all
Okay,
began.
yes. So I went to Texas A&M, and I got my degree in biomed and nutritional science, because I was always very passionate about medicine, particularly holistic medicine. And so that was the journey I thought that God had called me to. I ended up meeting my husband while I was in college, got married in college, and we became entrepreneurs to put ourselves through school.
Mm,
So we ended up doing business. I didn't use this degree, but later on I realized God gave me that passion, because he knew he was going to give me a little girl, Cheyenne, that was going to need that,
yeah.
me to have that knowledge to kind of navigate the journey that was going to be before us. So in 2005, we moved from College Station to Austin. At that time, I had a 5-year-old, and Cheyenne was, just born. So we were new to the Austin
Mm,
community. At 9 months old, Cheyenne showed signs of, they call it terminate failure to thrive. So she was
mm.
continually eating, but was never satisfied, and she stopped growing. So she didn't grow a centimeter, she didn't gain an ounce, and she was eating uncontrollably, screaming for food from the time she woke up till the time she went to bed. Like, our house was always filled with the crying of a child for food. Um, so during that time, I was going from doctor to doctor to doctor. She was turned over to Dell Children's Hospital. She was on the U.S. pediatric board, because nobody could diagnose what was wrong. And, close to age 2, she still couldn't say mama. She couldn't say dad. She was losing, her hair. And they nobody could figure out what was wrong. So I became like Mama Bear and knew I had to seek all avenues for healing. So I was using Western medicine, Eastern medicine, you name it, any path to try and find an answer. And during that time, I realized that there was no community of support for families if their children had a rare condition or an undiagnosed condition. Because during this time, Cheyenne was undiagnosed. There was no path for us to follow. So lo and behold, we finally got a diagnosis, and she was about probably 2.5 by that time. And it
Wow.
was
Okay.
Eastern medicine that diagnosed her, and she couldn't absorb any sucrose or fructose. So they're like, she has a malabsorption issue. I go back to Dell Children's. I wanted it verified, Western medicine. They verified, yep, this is correct. She'll have it for life, and it is a very rare condition. She'll have it for life. She's been so malnourished. More than likely, China will always be physically and mentally slower, because she just wasn't getting all the nutrients and very far behind.
Yeah.
So, by then I had a 3-year-old, and so we were eating sardines and bell peppers in the park while the kids were playing, and kids were
Yeah.
singing songs. We were in physical therapy or speech therapy for her to just learn basics.
Yeah.
And I turned to running during that time as well to cope with the emotional pain. And I would get up before the sun came up, and my husband would leave to work, and I would run and run and run, and I would cry and I would pray. I said, Lord, please heal my Cheyenne, and I promise to bring glory to your name. Even though I didn't know what that looked like, I had no clue what that looked like. I just knew that I would do something. And so I turned to running really to deal with the emotional pain of Cheyenne's health journey and not having the diagnosis, a community of support to turn to. And, probably at times I would feel I was crying out to Jesus for him to heal her, but it was during those times like, is he hearing me? Which of course he was. It's just as humans, we want immediate answers. And when you see it, your own child suffering, it's
Oh,
really
yeah.
hard to cope with that. So I really feel that he gave me running as a gift. First of all, it's my time with him to run, cry, pray, scream, whatever I wanted. But I really was able to start envisioning during those long runs what would an organization look like if to help this group of people. And so I ran my first marathon in 2006 in hopes that Cheyenne would one day receive a finish line of healing. So it was in
Mm.
honor of her. And at that marathon, I ended up qualifying for Boston. And then that led to, 10 consecutive Boston marathons after that.
Which is no short feat of itself. To qualify for the Boston Marathon, you must be really, really good.
Well, and what's interesting is I was not a runner before, but I think it just shows that how much time sometimes the pain and stuff that we hold inside. I think I just used my running as an outlet and let it all out. But he also, I know, gave me that gift because my running became a platform for CC for C. In 2012 is when 2012 is when I got the official 501c3 letter for CC for C,
Very
and
good.
on Valentine's Day. And I took that as a gift from the Lord because people told me a lot of times it takes multiple times to get that, status. And on Valentine's Day, I go out to my
Very
mailbox
good.
and there was a letter saying that we were granted that. So then I'm here and I'm like, okay, we're going to start this organization. It's going to help children across Texas with rare and diagnosed conditions. And people are like, okay, well, how are you going to get awareness? How are you going to get funding for it? What's your marketing strategy? And I always told people that, God called somebody to start this that had a blank resume, really to show us what he can do when we just answer the call, because I didn't have answers to what people were asking me, but I knew that even if one more child was healed like Cheyenne, I had completed the call. And so in that was February of 2012 that I opened the letter. A few weeks later, I get a call, and it was from Runner's World magazine. And they said, we came across your picture on the internet. We want to see if you can send us some pictures. We're interested in shooting you for the cover of Runner's World.
Wonderful.
And I said, well, I would love to do that, but there's one stipulation. I am running this Boston Marathon for the very first child of a foundation I'm starting called the Cheyenne's Champions for Children. And this little girl named Skylar's at Dell Children's Hospital, and she's one of the sickest children there. She needs something to look forward to and to fight for. And so I would ask that if I do get chosen for this cover, that you mention Skylar, put a picture of her, anything about her, because I want to be able to tell her that she and I together are on this, we're going to be in Runner's World together, and give her something exciting to look forward to. Because I had gone to visit Skylar and told her I was running Boston and that we were teammates. And as I ran the
Mm.
Boston Marathon, she was going to continue to train to get out of Dell Children's Hospital. She had had a rare infection that had settled in her hip. She had been on life support. She had been in
Wow.
ICU like 38 days, I think, by the time I had seen her. And she was open from the hip down to her knee, and not knowing, what was going to be the final outcome of that. There was a lot of prayer around her journey, but I told her, I said, what's your favorite color? Because I'm going to run Boston for you. And she told me purple, and that became the foundation's color. And I said, there's going to be thousands of people running, and we're going to have purple wristbands made. And what do you want on your wristband? And it was going to be pray for Skylar. So that same wristband is given to all the children of the foundation when they come into the foundation. We put their motto of how one day they want to finish their finish line of healing, what their motto is. So lo and behold, they're like, okay, good. That's a deal. So I end up getting the cover. I fly out to Malibu to shoot it. And they said, by the way, this is our largest issue of the year. It's our Boston Marathon issue, because they hadn't told me what issue it was for. I was like, wow, God works in mysterious ways, doesn't he? I'm getting the publicity, even though I didn't have an answer. God knew how he was going to get the answer for CC4C. So I go to the Boston Marathon. There's a lot of energy around, me running for this little child, us signing autographs, us passing out the wristbands, pray for Skylar, and had our logo on it. And this girl, Desiree Ficker, who was very well known in the triathlete world, flew in to run with me because I wanted kind of a teammate to run alongside me. And I told her, this run was not about time for me. The most important thing was that I came back with the finisher's medal, and I was running for the joy and hope of healing for Skylar. And I wanted that medal for her. So I said, I'm not wearing a watch. This isn't about time. This is a time of prayer for Skylar and her healing. And then I get back to giving her medal that one day she is going to be healed, and she is going to walk out of Dell Children's Hospital.
Wonderful.
So that ended up being the hottest year that they'd had in Boston Marathon. And I start running, and at the halfway point at mile 13, Desiree proceeds to tell me that it's going to be my fastest time that I've ever run a Boston Marathon. And I said, well, I don't want to know. Don't tell me. I don't want that focus to be my focus. She said, okay, it's just you're on par to do really, really good. And so not long after that, I get this horrendous pain in my hip, like kind of the identical location of Skylar's. And it was just excruciating. And I started dragging my leg. And Desiree was like, Talaya, we need to go to a med tent. And I was like, no, I can't stop because I have pain. We'll make it. So I keep dragging my leg. I remember just reciting scripture together. And it's hard to understand. I remember it's almost like my body and it was like a disconnect between my body and my mind in prayer for Skylar. And I remember just thinking, God can carry me across the finish line. I just have to stay in prayer. So I keep dragging my leg. Again, it was the hottest year. People are filling the med tents because they were passing out. I had Skylar's finish line across my shirt. People are saying, go, Skylar, go, Skylar, go. So it continued to encourage me. But the pain was, just horrific. And Desiree, many times, like she started tearing up and she said, Talaya, can I carry you? Like, I can't watch you in this agony. And I want, I know you want to finish this, but this is hard, to watch me probably going through so much pain. I don't even really remember all of it, to tell you the truth, but the Lord brought me to the finish line, and I finally got to the finish line. I remember it's 4 hours and 11 minutes, and there's a lot of pictures of it. And the minute I got to the finish line, I couldn't take another step. So they get wheelchairs, they wheel me into the medical tents. They do testing, and they said, I think your femur's broken and we need to rush you to the Boston Mass.
Wow. Okay.
So they take me to Boston Mass. I have my finisher's medal around my neck with Desiree. And they come back and tell me that my femur had completely broken in the identical location as Skylar's infection. And, it's one of those, they're like, how did you keep running? Why did you keep running? Did you have any symptoms before? And the answer was, I never had any symptoms about hip pain. I stayed in prayer and was in so much focus about Skylar, and that I just believe that God carried me to the finish line. So I was told that I they wanted to do a rod. My husband was like, no, we got to get her back to Austin because he's in the medical field at that time and wanted the hip hadn't, or the femur, the bone hadn't displaced. So it's just like fractured. But I was told if they did that rod, I probably wouldn't be running marathons again. So
Got
they,
it.
I had to stay overnight at the hospital or at the hotel, and all the medical bathrooms, rooms were sold out. So I'd run a marathon all day. Everything was sold out. Nobody could bathe me, so I had to lay just gross from a marathon, flat on my back all night. And I remember just thinking, God, like my running's over. I was just getting this foundation started. Like, what? What do you
Yeah.
have planned for
Yeah.
me? And very confused, but I laid there all night, and sometimes, in the stillness of the night is when God just gives you that peace, even though you don't really understand what's going on. Next morning we wake up, they're taking me out, to the plane, and this man comes up to me and he says, I was looking for you at the expo. I wanted to get your autograph and we want to sponsor you as a runner. And I said, well, as you can tell, I think my running days are over. And he said, well, tell me what happened. So I told him what happened. And he said, well, I'm the global manager of Nestle. And they were the presenting sponsors. They owned Power Bar at the time, and Power Bar was a presenting sponsor. He said, we want to support
Mm.
you. I'm flying out to Europe right after this for our national campaign. You're stronger than you think. And he said, we're trying to figure out what story that we're going to use for that. And I said, well, you're stronger than you think when you do things for a reason beyond yourself, and
Mm.
I take that for myself. If I was running that marathon for myself, or if I didn't have God and prayer, I could have never finished it. Like pain would have overtaken the mind. But my vision was for somebody that was in much greater need than myself. And although the medal to me just crossing might have just been another finisher's medal, I knew to her bringing that home had a lot of great symbolism and encouragement.
Mm.
And I was determined to do that for her because she needed it more than me. So back to the whole publicity part, God had his ways. And so there we were on a national campaign. Just a couple months later, it was Power Bar's national campaign, Stronger Than You Think. And they used my story. And I told them instead of financial return, I wanted 10 coveted entries to the Boston Marathon because next year I was coming back 10 times stronger, meaning for 10 more children.
Yeah. Wow.
So we got those 10 entries. I come home the same. I was on a board of doctors looking at it. Nobody could figure out how on earth I kept running that long on a femur that was completely broken. Unknown to anybody right now. My leg broke undiagnosed, and that's exactly, what I was running for, is undiagnosed in rare conditions. And they said, well, one surgeon said, everybody thinks you need a rod, but it hasn't displaced. And if you will lay completely still for about the next 9 weeks, it was going to be, 3 months, but 9 weeks I had to lay completely still, like on my back.
Wow. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Then it will heal. And it has a chance of healing without us doing a rod. And so I looked at him and I said, I believe in a mighty God. Be still and know that I am God is a verse I'm going to hold on to. And I'm telling you, I'm coming back 10 times stronger next year. I'm going to run
Mm.
again. So I'll do this. And of course he thought I was crazy. So I did. I laid there and, God downloaded the whole vision for CC4C. And I still tear up because I was always busy in my life, and whether it was marathons or my children, I had a Christian jewelry business. My love language is hospitality and giving to others, but God took me flat on my back to give me one of the most precious times with him and to give me the vision of what was really needed with CC4C. And so it was, I always tear up because it's just so beautiful. And I never once in 9 weeks ever turned on the TV. I just couldn't get enough. Like I was just constantly writing and getting vision of, okay, I'm flat on my back. Where is my joy really come from? Or what do the children need when they're in so much agony laying here? And he gave me a tiny glimpse of what the children we were going to serve go through for years at a time. And so I know it was a gift from him. It was a time of stillness, and he downloaded everything that CC4C needed. And so
Wonderful.
in time it healed. I came back the next year, ran my fastest Boston Marathon of all 10 of them. Brought back 10 people running for CC4C, and that was really the big launch. We just got more and more awareness, and it grew to where it is today. We raise more than $1 million a year. We help children and the families across the state. We have programs for the mothers. We have programs for the fathers. We have sibling adventure days, so we recognize the siblings and everything they're going through.
Yeah.
And then we have
Yeah.
the full financial medical assistance side, where we can help cover things that the kids don't have. We place the kids on their dream teams, and that's a part of like inspiration that we know they needed. Just people, that comfort of knowing put them on like a high school team, or sometimes a business will surround them and give them things to look forward to on a weekly basis. We send them on an adaptive ski trip once a year, an adaptive summer trip. So, anyways, we create community.
Yeah.
We are faith based, and we've had countless children come to us bedridden and a family without hope. And all of a sudden, you give them a community, you give them love, and all of a sudden, those kids have a strength that is, they're just so resilient, and a strength that you can't even understand. But all they need is a community around them, and each person in the family needs that, because it's such a
Yeah.
long journey
Yeah.
for these families. But we've had kids, go off to college and get married and have careers, and we help get them diagnosed and healed. And whatever healing looks like, some of them it's complete healing. Sometimes it's a lot of emotional healing. Sometimes it's just they have this huge family now of CC4C, because we support them through their 18th birthday. So it's not just a one time or 1 year. We're here for their entire childhood. So that's kind of the story of how it got started. I think the next thing that I just really realized is there was two missions of CC4C. He had the mission of helping these children and their families, but also it was a mission to show God's love and faith through CC4C. There was so many people, and there still is, that have come to know Christ. I think have felt the love of Christ through CC4C. By volunteering with us, or our board or leadership. Even when we do our gala, I've had people come up to me and they're like, I come to this gala, but it just feels different. And there's something so special about it. And I know it's because every single thing we do within CC4C is founded on the Word of God, but also we live it out and recognize Him every single day, every meeting, every event, every child's prayed for that comes in the organization. And we've gone through a lot of hardship too, and I think there's a lot of spiritual attack on groups that are trying to, do the Lord's work, but He always prevails and He always wins.
Very good. Very, very good.
So it's
I,
that's been, go ahead.
no, I find that even your 9 months, it was as if God was saying to you, "Hey, I need you to slow down." And
Yeah.
in order to ensure that you're slowing down, I'm going to force you to really understand the plight of the people that you're serving, but to really be able to spend some time really reflecting upon me and the vision that I have for you.
Yes, that's exactly it.
Yeah. And the reason I understand exactly what you had to do, even with Resource Global, I actually was not part of the first 9 months of Resource Global because I was diagnosed with cancer and
Um,
right in my sinus. And the doctor says you're going to be 10 weeks of chemo and radiation, and you are going to be bedridden. You will not be able to move. I had chemo and radiation 5 times a week. I could barely move. I was in so much pain. I lost 80 pounds in a matter of 5 weeks. And I was just laying in bed unable to do anything because I was in so much pain. But it was during that period of time that the Vision Resource Global got solidified. And then it was him telling us, "Hey, look, just want to let you know, this thing started without you around. this thing grew because you weren't there. And so as it continues to grow, don't ever get so cute to think you actually did all this because I did it despite you.
Yes, that's so true. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I think that once you recognize, all of our trials, as long as we can just keep the faith and keep praying, God in the end wins. He wins. That's how I say God always wins, even when it's hard and difficult. If
Yeah.
we can just stay the course and keep our faith, hindsight, you can see how he had a hand in
Yeah.
every single thing, even the hardest and darkest times he's there. And
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
some of the most, like I say, some of the most beautiful is when we're in our times of the most brokenness.
Yeah. When did you know it was time to transition out? Because you've grown this wonderful organization. Now you're doing something else, or
Yeah.
you will be doing something else. How did you know it was time to go?
I will say this, when I first started CC for C, probably the first 5 years, like all I could do was eat, breathe, and think CC for C. I
Hmm.
mean, if my husband was going out of town, or I didn't for some reason have the kid, where the kids were gone at something and my husband was out of town, like I wanted to work 24/7 on CC for C. I
Yeah.
couldn't stop. It was like it just was all encompassing, and actually got to an unhealthy balance, where I had to like kind of slow down. I actually worked myself into the ground where I lost my health for a while. But towards the end, I know it was from the Lord, and it was like I knew everything in my heart, and it just became harder. Like I could see that I had done everything he wanted me to do, but the true vision of starting a mission is to know that you can get it watered well and well rooted, that it flies without you. And I just, all of a sudden, that burning desire, all of a sudden I was like, I need some more new vision and new ways of doing things so it continues to grow. I just felt like I had gotten it to the level that it needed to be, but I just is I think it was a gift from God. Like I knew it needed just a fresh new ideas. And so once that started to happen, and my girls were at a place where I really wanted to be able to spend quality time with them.
Mm.
My young Cheyenne was getting ready to graduate, and I was like, I have a final year with her to really pour into it. My other daughter, we were planning our wedding, and I was like, Lord, I really want to, for these two key times in their lives, I want to be 100% present as their mother. Because when you're there were times, even though it's a beautiful thing, that see the creation of CC for C, that I struggled with that work life balance, and wanting to be the very best parent I could too, and but I was working a lot too. So but I knew that was so important to me, those two things. And I think just gave me that peace that it was time. I just kind of knew. And so I did, try and transition out twice before that, and it was not as smooth. And so, I finally did in 2023, and it was, her name's Monica. She leads it now. She had started with us in the very, very beginning. She was our very first volunteer and employee. So she had held every position within the organization, and had trust among every constituent group, the donors, the families, the staff, everybody. She knew every aspect. I say she knows CC for C better than myself. And I think
Mm.
that's a bit of wisdom I learned is, sometimes resumes don't speak volumes, but or they can, but I think sometimes somebody that's heart and passion has been in an organization for the long term, and they've held so many different roles, they have such a very good scope of what it needs. The only role she hadn't had was executive director.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So, and there was just an unbelievable amount of peace that came with, me transitioning out. We had such a good relationship, and I, I'm still very involved with it. But so I would just have to say, how did I know? It was just kind of a piece that I knew. The passion for it, was I was more, I just was, it wasn't on my mind all the time. I felt like my best gifts to the organization at that point were helping with our gala and fundraising and board. But I felt like more the day to day and getting new ideas the organization needed some fresh, a new leader with new ideas.
Mm, wonderful, wonderful.
Otherwise, you keep doing things
And
the exact same way. We get into habits, and it needed growth. It needed new vision.
yeah, Talaya, as we begin to wrap up here, is where can people find you? Is it Instagram, LinkedIn, and also are you able to share what you're up to now?
Yes, I would love to share. Okay, well, first of all, yes, my personal's Talaya Frazier, Talaya Frazier, Frazier. That's my Instagram. Our nonprofit's is web address is the letter the number 4c.org. And I have just taken on a new role and I feel like God truly has called me to this for this next decade. I'll be turning 50 and I'm excited about it. I'm going to be the Chief Client Officer of Medici, which
Hmm.
is a health plus tech company. And it's kind of doing what I was able to do in the children's space, but for the adults wellness space, and really getting to some root causes, providing VIP concierge health, business health exams for people, and helping us hopefully get on top of the root cause of disease and prevent it. So I'm super excited about it. And it also is faith based. So it falls in alignment with my values. And I'm excited to kind of use what I learned through CC4C and children and the connections to now hopefully be able to help a lot of adults. We all need teams of people that we can run to that are there for us in the health journey.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for just the time and for jumping on and for us to get to know you as well too. So I appreciate that.
Thank you very much. I just love what you're doing, and it's been a true honor to be part of Global Resource. The resource.
Yeah, and for all the stuff that you did in terms of coming alongside even some of our folks over in Austin. So thank you so much,
Yes.
Talaya.
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll talk soon.
Okay. Bye bye.
All right, bye.